This one has a stack of paper in it, so you don't have to feed the paper ballot. It will automatically print it out, and then you take that paper printout and you take it to a ballot box. Now this ballot box has a screen on it. The ballot box screen isn't telling the votes, but it can provide information such as how many ballots have been dropped. You know, this year the 5th ballot that has been dropped in this box. So again, we haven't yet decided what type of information would come with that, but this one is a 4-leg tabletop device. Both devices are this way, this and the ballot box.
Couple of things. I mean, this is the one that I feel is not accessible at all. Unless it's height adjustable, that's going to be a problem. The width of it, there is no way. I mean, we have wheelchairs that they're going to knock that over trying to get up to it. It is not going to happen. We had people that, you know, these cardboard booths that they made. Oh my God. You know, that is just not going to work. I mean, you've got 350 pounds knocking into that.
Yeah.
So if they're thinking of cardboard, or they're thinking of something that is not metal, that is not strong, I really think you're going to have problems. The other thing is, on that tablet, it looks a lot smaller surface than the other. Small is not good when it comes to people with disabilities, where their movement, they're not able to coordinate and to have precise movements. And so people with cerebral palsy, people with MS, people with Parkinson's, I could go on.
So are you saying that
Nelson, I want to say something. So just because we want you to know that we're sensitive to all of this stuff, and we listen to you, and we have listened to you throughout the years. As we have worked with the designers on these basic concepts, I'm glad you're saying it too, but we have been able to articulate a lot of these concerns. So many you know, usually at least half of our sessions with the designers are in relation to accessibility.
Good.
So you're echoing. I hope it comforts you a little bit what we've already told them.
Yeah.
But we want you to voice the concerns, because we may have missed some subtlety in there.
Yeah.
So there definitely is a lot of value in that. I mean, as Tim mentioned, so one of the obvious ones, especially for voters that may have visual impairment, low vision, or maybe blind, that one of the obvious things that Tim's mentioned, not the obvious things, but one of the biggest challenges we've identified for the designers and have them working and kind of thinking around this and researching it, is we recognize the idea that with a commitment to producing a paper ballot as the official record, it introduces some issues, not only for sighted voters, but also for voters that may have issues actually handling a paper. So the actual having to handle paper to then insert it into the ballot then becomes an issue. And also if the final official record that's going to be counted is a printed ballot, even though you've verified your vote choices on the ballot marking device, you know, the voter needs to be afforded the opportunity to make sure that it printed out correctly, and that from the confirmation to what was printed on the paper, that is actually what they wanted to vote. So figuring out a way of how do you then allow for an opportunity for a voter to have that read back to them, to confirm, hey, this is what's on the paper, I'm now reading the paper back to you before it's cast. And on the handling issues, whether there's opportunities for mechanisms like autocast, being able to autocast that so you don't have to hand it to someone else.
Well, a voice component would be great. When IDEO came to our center, we showed them we have people that use voice control for the computer who don't have really good control of their limbs, and I think you know what Scott said is that really needs to be heard, that voice input would be an important thing, and that includes reading back the votes. So for someone who is low vision or blind, for someone with different types of physical disabilities, developmental disabilities. I mean, even seniors who may, you know, God, some of the ballots have been so complicated. You bring your cheat sheet in, and you know, if you can't double check somehow or have it played back to you, I mean, there could be all kinds of problems, I think. I remember both of my parents being seniors and having Parkinson's and other disabilities, and voting was just this monumental thing. And I think that, you know, if you look at the population right now, that's a huge number of people, of voters, who actually want to vote. So, yeah, this one I'm worried about.
Yeah, and I think that one's had significant amount of conversations about it, as we've recognized and they've gotten us to settle down on is, hey, so these are just to get us working. You know, there's going to be stuff that we're going to have to throw out because it's just not going to work. But just figuring things out and figuring out how do you make this concept work for LA County and for your voters. So it's been a process. But again, all the feedback is extremely valuable. So we appreciate that.
Scott?
And for those who have tracking difficulties, have you considered pictures?
I think we haven't gotten into the user interface, or what's called the user experience, but certainly overall, I think there's been a lot of discussion internally about developing things that use less text, more kind of visual stuff, just to even cover the diversity of languages and try to have common kind of sets of things. So I think that's definitely carrying over into this project. And with IDEA, we've had a lot of conversations about if we're going to have the technologies using pictures, using video tutorials rather than just text for people to read on a screen. Anything that is using more of that is certainly something. We haven't mocked anything up and figured out where do you use it and where you do it, because right now they haven't started any sort of development around a user interface and what that experience might be like, but that's going to be very important in that.
UCLA and USC have these centers for excellence where they develop ideas for people with disabilities, particularly developmental disabilities, but they keep in mind everyone's disabilities. And when I say developmental, I mean anybody with a developmental disability could be deaf, blind, partially sighted, on and on and on. So we face a lot of other things. And they actually have developed and used these symbols that are universally recognized, so that all of our agendas, all of the instructions for people who sat on the Targin committee, they were always, you know, if there was something in writing, there was a symbol too, and you would not believe how effective it was for people with all disabilities. And I served with a lot of people on that for years. And I would think that we could, I'm doing a project actually with people from UCLA right now, and they were interested in this. I told them I had to come to this meeting today. And they might give us access to that and give us a contact who might be willing to do this.
That would be fantastic.
Just to help,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, or even if to just point us in the way of
In
resources
right
that are already
direction, yeah.
available.
There
that'd be
are
fantastic.
resources for it. And I think Scott makes a really good point. Again, there are people, you know, that would really help a lot.
I mean, all our apps that we download, they all have icons. There's really no words, so I don't know why we can't use that concept and just transfer it into the voting
Yeah, and in
world.
some of the research that we've done, either in projects that have been done outside of the US, in countries that have very low literacy rates, or in countries that have a high number of languages, just looking at how either they've done it in public service campaigns, or the way it's been effective even in their democratic systems, with their ballots being just symbols and pictures and things like that. it's actually a lot of research that points to how effective and how quickly it kind of takes hold, because done right, it's very intuitive. So it doesn't require a lot of, let me teach you a whole new symbolism of languages. It's very intuitive. It's meant to connect and be very easy. So
it
it's been
works
very
great,
effective.
and I think it might save a lot of money on translating everything.
And I feel
Yeah.
that it would also maybe cut down on the margin for error
Yes.
and the amount of revotes and all that.
No, that's great. It's good, and again, any resources, if you did have a copy,
Yeah,
I'd love to.
definitely.
Ephraim's being very low key on this subject, because he's the #1 advocate of this sort of communication. He's constantly coming to me like, "Doesn't this look great? A picture better than words, dude." So you
Don't they
definitely
say
have an advocate here.
a picture speaks
Good.
1,000 words? It's like, hey.
It does. Well, and it's universal, so,
Yeah, it does.
you know, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's great.
I like that. I think you need to keep both, because some people, depending on their vision impairment, may have trouble interpreting the pictures. But I know for those that it works for, it's absolutely removed a huge barrier. So I believe that both components need to be in there, with the words and the symbols. And as you correctly said, when done right, it works for everyone. So definitely keep those words in there, but bring in those symbols.
Great, thanks, Sona.
Okay.
All right, sorry, Monica.
Okay.
I know you want to get to the third concept.
So the final concept is 3 clear steps. So the goal here was to identify really the 3 clear steps that the voter would take in marking a ballot. So, what those 3 steps are: the marking the ballot, the printing of the ballot, print and verify the ballot, and then the casting of the ballot. So the way that this system is designed is it stands with the devices, hinged on this little stand. So the first device is again a tablet, a touchscreen type of tablet where the voter will mark their options. It's wired in through the stand into the printer. So then the voter will come over to the printer. It has a little screen. You verify again your options and you print here. This does have a manual feed printer where you insert your paper ballot and it shoots it out once you've already confirmed your selections and are ready to cast it. So once you get your paper ballot, you walk over to the last ballot box, and the only automation on this ballot box is it has an automatic I voted sticker dispenser. So when you mark your ballot, it shoots out a little sticker that says I voted. This concept has a bigger, heavy base because it's just one pole holding up the device. And then since the devices have to be connected to each other, wired to each other, then there will be some padding, to cover the wires between the devices. And the idea here is you can configure it in different ways, whether you have a couple printers on the pole or just the way that you configure it can change depending on the polling site, whatever works best for that center.
And just for those of you on the phone, and if you don't have the PowerPoint in front of you, what this 1, 2, 3 concept is, it envisions this big round base to stabilize the device, but then it's sort of, if you can envision a microphone stand, it's a slender 1-pole microphone stand, and on it you can attach the devices, whether it be attaching the tablet, which then has a joint for it to adjust for height, whether you want it higher, lower, and then also you can just attach the printer to it so you can print it in. Similarly, the ballot box sits on what looks like a microphone stand, and then you have the ballot box on it. And as Monica mentioned, the key thing about this one is the concept behind it is that it's versatile in terms of the setup. So you don't have these fixed layouts of the devices when we know that polling places don't have fixed layouts. Sometimes you're in a great space, sometimes you're in a really weird space. So the ability to reconfigure it with these adjustable joints and doing all that would give you a lot of flexibility. That's a driver behind behind that in addition to the 1, 2, 3. So you have Terry and Scott.
Okay. I don't know if this has been tested with a wheelchair or not. Because people have to get close enough to use this surface. And so the base of it would have to be some really heavy metal that is flat enough that if the wheelchair rolls over it, or that it can roll over it. I have concerns about this because it looks nice, you know, but I think when you've got one base of support, I'm just worried that if someone, you know, bumps into it, this thing's going to go flying. So, you know, I don't know if they could look at the design a little bit differently and somehow make a bottom part like the first thing that we saw, where it comes like this and like this, like a, I don't know, what is that? It's
Almost like a Z
yeah,
shape
like
or
a Z,
something.
yeah. And I think the base of it is going to have to be some kind of metal that's strong enough that it's not going to get completely destroyed. The other thing is that surface is pretty darn small on the component. So if the person is in a wheelchair and has upper body strength at all, they're gonna put some weight on that. I think you need a bigger surface.
Right.
On the top part, I think you need something really strong to hold this down. Otherwise, you've got this thing that's gonna go flying and perhaps hurt somebody. So, and you know, I share the same concern on that, although someone in a wheelchair conceivably could pull up sideways to that, hopefully, and drop their ballot in. Whereas this, there's no way. I mean, it's just not gonna happen easily. And I guess I would say with any of these, there's always gonna be someone in a wheelchair that you're just not expecting. I mean, we have